If you study history closely, a disturbing pattern begins to emerge, a pattern that has destroyed every major superpower over the last 500 years. And in 2025, the United States is following that same pattern, stage by stage. It feels less like watching the future and more like rereading a script that's already ended the same way before. In 1590, Spain was the richest empire on Earth. It controlled half the world's gold and silver. Its currency was accepted everywhere. Most of Europe bent to its power. Yet in less than 80 years, Spain was bankrupt, and it never recovered. In 1914, Britain was the largest empire in human history. They said the sun never set on the British Empire. The British pound was the world's reserve currency. 40 years later, the empire was gone. In 1991, the Soviet Union was a global superpower, global influence, military satellites across the planet, and in just 900 days, it collapsed, not because of war, but because of economic implosion. 3 superpowers, 3 collapses, one identical pattern. And here's the part that should terrify you. The United States has already completed 5 out of the 7 stages. To understand why, you first need to understand what imperial collapse actually means, not in textbooks, but in reality. Empires don't collapse because they lose a war. They collapse because they run out of economic capacity. They expand beyond what they can maintain. Military bases in dozens of countries, multiple wars on multiple fronts, promises they can no longer afford to keep. At first, no one notices the decline. The currency still works. The military still wins battles. The government still pays its bills. But behind the scenes, the system is breaking. Resources are misallocated. Productive capacity shrinks. Talented people leave. Then acceleration begins. Allies quietly start switching sides. Enemies test boundaries. Reserve currency status weakens, and suddenly the very advantages that once made the empire powerful become its greatest vulnerabilities. This is exactly what happened to Spain, to Britain, to the Soviet Union. They all believed their power was permanent. They all ignored reality until collapse reached critical mass. Let's walk through the pattern, starting with Spain. After Columbus reached the Americas in 1492, Spain became the world's first true superpower. They conquered vast empires and seized the largest gold and silver mines on Earth. By 1550, Spanish ships were bringing 200 tons of silver to Europe every year. By 1600, that number doubled. Spain controlled Europe's money supply. The Spanish real was the global reserve currency. And this is where the pattern begins. Stage 1. Military overextension. Spain fought wars everywhere, against the Ottoman Empire, France, Italy, the Netherlands, England, and across the Americas. By 1580, Spanish troops were stationed on 4 continents. Military spending consumed half the empire's revenue, and still wasn't enough. Stage 2. Currency debasement. Spain couldn't cover its costs with taxes, so it did what every failing empire does. It debased its currency. Silver coins were diluted with copper. Face value stayed the same. Real value collapsed. By 1600, Spanish coins contained almost no silver at all. Prices exploded. Trust vanished. Stage 3. Debt spiral. Spain borrowed endlessly from European bankers, then defaulted. 1557, 1558, 1559, and 1560. 4 bankruptcies in 40 years. Stage 4. Loss of productive capacity. With unlimited silver, Spain stopped producing. Why farm when you can import food? Why manufacture when you can buy luxury goods? Manufacturing collapsed. Agriculture stagnated. Spain became a transit system for money. Silver flowed in and immediately flowed out. When the mines slowed, the system imploded. Stage 5. Social decay. Crime rose, poverty spread, talented people emigrated. By 1700, Spain was an empty shell, large on maps, economically dead. At its peak, Britain ruled 25% of the world and 400 million people. The pound sterling was the world's reserve currency. London was global finance. They believed it was permanent. They were wrong. Stage 1. Military overextension. British forces were deployed across 6 continents. Then World War I arrived. Britain chose victory over solvency. The war cost what would equal $1 trillion today. By 1918, Britain owed massive debts, mostly to the United States. The creditor had become the debtor. Stage 2. Currency stress. Britain returned to the gold standard at pre-war levels. The pound became overvalued. Exports collapsed. Unemployment surged. By 1931, Britain abandoned the gold standard. The pound instantly lost 25% of its value. Stage 3. Debt spiral. Before Britain could recover, World War II began. Another massive debt buildup. By 1945, Britain owed more than its entire GDP. Stage 4. Loss of empire. India gained independence in 1947. Within 20 years, the empire was gone. Stage 5. Currency decline. The pound steadily lost global relevance. A world reserve currency became a regional one. Britain never recovered its superpower status. After World War II, the USSR rivaled the United States. Nuclear weapons, massive military, global influence. But the economy beneath it was rotting. Stage 1. Military overextension. The Soviet Union spent up to 20% of GDP on the military. Afghanistan, Cuba, Vietnam, Africa, Eastern Europe. The cost was unsustainable. Stage 2. Economic stagnation. By the 1970s, growth stopped. Factories produced junk. Farms failed. Technology lagged. The USSR began importing grain. Stage 3. Currency failure. The ruble wasn't trusted, even by Soviets. Real trade required dollars or gold. When oil prices collapsed in the 1980s, reserves vanished. Stage 4. Loss of empire. Eastern Europe broke away. The Berlin Wall fell. Stage 5. Total collapse. On December 26, 1991, the USSR ceased to exist. No invasion, no final battle, just economic failure. Now comes the uncomfortable part. The United States is following the same sequence. Stage 1. Military overextension. Over 750 military bases in 80 countries, troops in 150 nations, defense commitments across the globe. An $850 billion military budget, larger than the next 10 countries combined. Yet recruitment is down, equipment is aging, commitments exceed capacity. Stage 2. Currency debasement. In 1971, the dollar became pure fiat. Since 2000, money supply has increased over 400%. Since 2020, over $6 trillion has been created. The dollar has lost 98% of its purchasing power since 1971. Different method, same result. Stage 3. Debt spiral. $36 trillion in debt. Interest payments nearing $1 trillion annually. The U.S. now spends more on interest than defense. This is the debt spiral, mathematically irreversible. Stage 4. Loss of productive capacity. Manufacturing has moved overseas. The U.S. imports nearly everything it consumes. medicine, electronics, even military components. Just like Spain, money flows out, production disappears. Stage 5. Social decay. Trust in institutions at record lows. Crime rising. Homelessness exploding. Over 100,000 overdose deaths per year. Political paralysis. Demographic decline. Cultural fragmentation. The warning signs are everywhere. What comes next? Stage 6. Loss of reserve currency status. Diversification away from the dollar. Gold accumulation. Alternative trade systems. Stage 7. Sudden collapse. Not gradual, not gentle. Fast, violent, unforgiving. Every empire believed it was the exception. Every empire was wrong. The pattern doesn't care about exceptionalism. The math is unforgiving. You cannot spend beyond your capacity forever. You cannot maintain empire without production. You cannot debase a currency without consequence. The sequence is locked. The only question left is timing. Maybe 10 years, maybe 5, maybe less. But history's clear. Collapse doesn't arrive slowly. It arrives all at once. If you found this video valuable, subscribe to the channel. See you next time. Take care.